Hi, this is Aaron Sponsler, General Sales Manager at Donnelly Ford of Shelby. In 2012, Donnelly Auto Group is celebrating 35 years in business and America's best-selling truck, the Ford F-Series. We have over 87 F-Series to pick from. Stop by and take a no-obligation test drive. Discover the Donnelly difference.
My grandfather was a police officer in Plymouth, Ohio back in the 50s for 10 or 12 years. But I mean, I never grew up with, that, like a chip on my shoulder or anything like that. Growing up, I never wanted to be a cop, never had any interest in law enforcement. But around the time I was 19, some things happened, and I started asking some questions about, what cops do. And somebody suggested, well, why don't you go down and do a ride-along? And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, you can go down and ride along. And I'm like, okay. So I went down and signed up, and I rode along, and that night it's like, I want to do this. I was bit by the law enforcement bug. Shelby has changed for the good and bad. I see a lot less alcohol-related crimes at our bars. Seems like when I first started, Friday, Saturday nights, we was always going to bar fights. We don't have too much of that anymore. When I first started at Shelby, our biggest problem as far as drugs was meth. We had several people in town that were cooking methamphetamine, and that was kind of like our biggest problem. Mm-hmm. Well, we arrested the cooks, sent them to prison, and the meth cleared up. But the unfortunate thing was, at the same time, prescription medication was starting to get abused very, widely, and then that led directly to heroin. I would say, the majority of my career, I've been dealing with prescription medication and heroin-related problems, whether it's the actual drug abuse problem or the crimes associated with drug abuse, which would be, burglaries, thefts, breaking and enterings, even robberies, car thefts, all that. But we saw a huge problem with it, and myself and the captain were just talking the other night. We were really lucky that we didn't have some homicides or police-related shootings connected to that stuff, because that drug was just the worst drug that I've seen. And I mean, it's worse than heroin, and it's a lot like methamphetamine. It has a lot of the same effects on a person as meth does, with the addition of psychedelic effects. It's kind of like taking acid or PCP, angel dust, and mixing it with meth, and you have a extremely violent, paranoid person who's hallucinating, been up for days, and they also have a higher pain tolerance and increased strength. So it's just like every bad combination, was involved with that. I mean, you take somebody and keep them up for 7 days, and they're going to be crazy as it is. I mean, lack of sleep like that is going to cause, psychosis. I was at a call with, a younger male and female. They'd been up for several days. They had torn their apartment. They had a nice apartment. They tore it apart. They ripped the carpet off because they thought ghosts were coming through the floorboards. In his bedroom, he had a loaded 12-gauge Magnum loaded with slug rounds, and one in the chamber. I mean, he was, it was a bad combination. I hope it doesn't happen, but there's a lot of communities, Mansfield and throughout the state, that saw some really violent, really terrible crimes that were a direct result of taking bath salt. I mean, once the new court and police and jail is built, things will be a lot easier. I mean, a lot. You're gonna have more officers in town. It's gonna be safer for the citizens, and it's also gonna be safer for the officers on the road. Because there's times where, where we have to transport somebody to jail. We don't have an option. This person has to go to jail. It's 4 in the morning, and we just can't get somebody to come in. So there's just times where I'm going to transport a guy to the jail and leaving the captain in town by himself. And when I first got in law enforcement in Shelby, that never happened. There was never a time where there was just one cop in town by himself.